A lost space, by definition, is a place that slips out of the passage of time and memory and becomes completely still. Nothing inside it moves. The air is not stirred by any breeze. No motes of dust float in the beams of dead light that string through the bare windows and lie coldly on faded floors. These are places where the sound seems to fall flat and the silence presses on the eardrums like cotton. Feel free to shake your head to clear this, but take care not to disturb anything as you do. These false vacuums are prone to collapse at the slightest touch. There is the common misconception that a lost space must in fact be a space. But from time to time, certain long-forgotten objects may attract the same inorganic stillness. These objects travel vast distances, unnoticed by the rules that govern the rest of us, and slip quietly into our forests, nestle themselves in boxes to be discovered by curious roaming hands. They may change shape, become something else. A parasite feeding on the life of another beloved form. A mug inexplicably duplicates itself. An anonymous chopstick rolls and falls and vanishes through the floor, which has never been looked at closely by anyone until it is suddenly thrust into view as an unreliable certainty. Like their counterpart, these objects must be handled carefully. Of these unusual objects, an excellent example can be provided. This story comes from a small town in rural Oregon, and it should be noted that there is an extremely high prevalence of lost places along this coast. Why this might be is highly debatable, but this author believes it is because the coasts are places where everything goes to die. They are the edges of the world, a natural ending place, and so are appropriately haunted. This story, however, centers around a small object located in the back of an elderly woman's kitchen cupboard, discovered entirely by accident by her grieving children during the post-mortem clean-out of the crumbling Victorian home. This object, made of solid brass, seemed to have no particular purpose and did not strike any sort of familiarity with any of her bewildered offspring. Online searches proved fruitless, and so the strange mechanism was taken to a local craftsman, who documented it with handwritten notes and a great many photographs which can be viewed in the appendix of this essay. Per his description, the object is approximately the size of a standard can opener. It is composed of an L-shaped handle, which is topped with a ball of maple, a rotating frame that can be turned counter or clockwise, and a hoop-shaped track. As one turns the handle, the frame rotates via the series of internal gears and slides along the lower track. However, it is quickly discovered that no matter which direction one turns the frame, it stops at 180 degrees and cannot be moved further despite significant force in all directions being applied. There's no internal compartments in which to slip ingredients to be ground, and likewise there's no holes for ground material to exit. In fact, it appears to have absolutely no practical use at all. It is an attractive object that has been lovingly constructed for seemingly no purpose, other than visual appeal. In an attempt to understand the object better, the craftsman makes small cuts to the housing around the internal gears to get a better look at what is happening inside. He discovers an extremely complex set of gears, far more intricate than such a simple mechanism calls for. In fact, as he carefully removes them, he finds that almost all of them are redundant. It is as if the object is being crammed full of as many moving parts as possible as a... what? A show of skill? Surely not, or else they would be visible. He places them out, each labeled and numbered, and moves on to the track on which the frame slides. And it is here he finds the mystifying heart of the object, something that would drive everyone involved nearly to madness. The interior of both the frame and track are smooth all around. There's no stops in place to keep the frame from moving a full 360 degrees. However, even when manual force is applied to turn the frame, it cannot be moved past a 180-degree point. Believing he has discovered the meaning of the object, some sort of bizarre parlor trick, the craftsman sets about solving the puzzle. He tests the metal, and he finds the entire thing non-magnetic. There's no hidden springs, no stealthy hinges. Tapping the object confirms that these parts are solid. No fluid to build up pressure, no pegs to activate with gravity. The object quite simply is impossible. The frame and hoop cannot be separated in their natural state, and fearing fatal damage, the craftsman leaves them intact despite the lack of answers. Instead, he sends the object to his friend, who specializes in metalworking. However, they can only confirm the craftsman's findings. They can provide no explanation, and with an uncharacteristic haste and gruffness, they send the object back with a note attached. No idea. Don't ask. And so the object begins a journey that sees it packed in boxes in bubble wrap. It is lowered into biodegradable packing peanuts made of corn, and which are edible if the recipient is so inclined. It is shoved behind air-filled plastic bags and dropped hastily into the hands of postal employees. It trundles along conveyor belts and is tossed into the backs of trucks. It is flown in the freezing holds of planes and tucked through the hot sun to private post office boxes, into which it is shoved by another postal worker who perhaps feels an unusual aversion to this particular package. It is picked up, carried upstairs, set on the table, and unwrapped or unearthed carefully from whatever it has been cradled in, and it takes over the life of another person who turns it in their hands, feeling their confidence drain away as they find none of the usual suspects. Days or sometimes even hours later, it is packaged and sealed and shipped off again. Until one day, it is sent to a young woman in Texas who opens the box only to find it empty. She feels a strange sense of relief and contacts the craftsman to inform him of the unfortunate event. The craftsman, too, feels a sort of relief, and he tells her it's no problem. They hang up, and the craftsman looks around his workshop with a sense of comfort he hasn't felt since the wretched thing came into his possession. The original owners have long since washed their hands of it, and he's grateful to have been relieved of his duty to care for it. He sits at his workbench and pulls his latest project towards him. Late that night, he gets a phone call that rouses him out of a deep sleep. He answers curtly and is met with a response shouted so loudly that he jerks the receiver away as if it spewed fire. "The hell is wrong with you?" the man on the other end demands. The craftsman recognizes the voice as one of the deceased women's children. He asserts his ignorance of whatever has happened, and the man on the other end informs him of the horror that has occurred. "It's fucking back! It's in that damn cupboard! You put it there?" "No," the craftsman says, and the temperature in the room seems to plummet. He breaks out in itching goose flesh. "It's right here! I'm looking at it! How the fuck did it get back here? What did you do?" "Don't touch it," the craftsman blurts frantically. "Just leave it alone." "We're closing on the house tomorrow. I can't leave it here." "Don't." The line goes quiet. Then the sound of a cupboard door shutting. "Don't contact me anymore," the man instructs. "Same for you." A click, and the line goes dead. The craftsman hangs up and finds himself paralyzed there on his back, one hand still extended in the act of lowering his phone. For no reason at all, he finds himself petrified of what he might feel there in the dark. What if he were to set the phone down and feel, as he retracted his hand, the brush of cold brass? He might just lose his mind then. So he stays there, frozen, the muscles of his arm screaming until the sun has come up and the room is bathed in early orange light. Only then does the man set down the phone and turn the gears in his neck to look at the table, which is bare, except for the thrift store shaded lamp and the book he was reading late last night. At his side, his arm throbs, useless, the muscles rubber band tight, shrieking. But he is grateful for the pain, because it is real. Here, the object passes out of memory. If it is discovered by the new owner, it impacts their lives quietly, or maybe not at all. Either way, it is never seen again, and those who come into contact with it struggle to keep the memories of it vivid. Their recollections are interrupted with other, more intrusive thoughts, and with time, they forget the object entirely. It only manifests in strange aversions to certain metals, a kind of creeping horror at the exposed innards of clocks, or watches, or bare gears of children's toys. They pass these feelings off, but they cannot help but feel that they have forgotten something, which is extremely important, and which they ought to have chiseled in stone. But the feeling quickly fades. And soon, they've moved on to other things, leaving the object to fade into lost space. Good evening, kids. It's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I wanted to tell you thank you so much for watching tonight's video, or listening to tonight's podcast, or however you hear tonight's story. If you guys are listening on YouTube, then I really appreciate it. I appreciate the likes, the comments, and the subs. If you guys are listening on Spotify, I appreciate the follow or the sub. If you listen anywhere else you can find a podcast, then, I appreciate you doing that as well, because this is what I do. And of course, I want to give a very, very, very big shout out to all of my followers on Patreon, especially Bloodlace, Peter Bowie, Acid System, F, Alan Hyper, Brennan Matthews, Mary Massacre, Janine Hook, Paul Livingston, Seth Joseph Richards, Ashlyn, Deadeye Nick, Azad Hosenbuckus, Rick Dance, Bryce Charles, Lumen Walker, Sherry Morgan, Jake McNee, Victoria Helton, BDH9294, Melinda S, Finney, Nathan, Dante Rao, Jane Reynolds, Ace Band G, Ryan Kellum, Bobby J. Cavanaugh, Barbara Biggs, Bella Bailey, Ninja Grace, Dad Obsessed Trash, Suzanne Groh, Tommy Walters, Tater Chip, Onbu Op Willie, Sarah Gree, Yuri Catslash, Randy, Brad Gustafson, Sean Tristan Markham, B. Lisa Tyser, Jose Rodriguez, Adagio Rose, Peaceful Buddha, Azurine Fox, Freddy Krueger, hogunkji, Justin Johnson, King Hades F13, Michael Scharbrough, James Lowe, Someone You Love, Nina Smith, Rafael Rodriguez, and Chance Burnett. You guys, as always, are the real MVP, and I can't thank you enough for helping me get to where I am now and, generally keeping me alive. So thank you all so much for supporting on Patreon. Thank you everybody in the description for supporting on Patreon. And thank you everybody out there who's listening and watching somewhere across the many reaches of the internet. Have a good night and sweet dreams.